Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and for coming to the first of three talks. I'll be speaking tomorrow about hotspots at Warminster in Wiltshire in England, and also the Scottish UFO hotspot as well. And later on tomorrow I'll be speaking about the Cottingley, so do come along to that one. Anyway, today we're talking about curses and haunted objects. Now, before we get there, and I always do this, no matter where I give a talk, I always like telling my audience a wee bit about myself, who I am, etc. And today's no different. So the aims of SPI, that strange for investigations, is to purposely endeavour to try and come up with some answers to account for what at present eludes us. Now, we do not hold or express any preconceived ideas as to the nature of the events of which we research. We tend to keep an open mind. Which is very, very, well, you've got to have that. I'm the first Scots guy to lecture over in Loch, Nevada. That was in 2009. Also in Ireland, in Galway and Carrick-on-Shannon in 2004. And also in France, in Strasbourg in 2010. And Holland in 2010. I do get about, don't I? I'm here today. And also one of the few guys in the world to have gone down in the Loch Ness Submarine. And I do give talks about my beloved Nessie. And some of the footage you'll see on YouTube, and because I took some film from the submarine as well. I'm the author, it says there 10 books, but it's actually books now. I'm just waiting on the proof copy coming for my 11th book, and that should be with me any day. Again, anybody know? I'm very, very sceptical. There are no such things as ghosts and poltergeists and UFOs. Away you go. No such, of course. How wrong was I? And like I've said before to you lovely people, hair's been pulled, I've been kicked, I've been slapped by. Nothing at all. And that's when I came off the proverbial sceptical fence. I do a lot of talks today. This is the first talk that I've ever done on this subject, right? So it's a brand I've never given, and I hate reading off my talks because I'm more in your face and walking about, but today I've got to do that. So today, consider this talk as an audio book, just like an audio book. So, but there are pictures as well, so don't worry about that. So, cursed objects, cars, boats, aircraft and more. Now, they're generally supposed to have been stolen from their rightful owners, all these objects. And the stories behind why these items are cursed, they do vary, but they usually are said to bring bad luck or to manifest unusual phenomena related to their presence. But are curses real? You know, are they real or are they just imaginary? There are way too many curses to talk to you lovely people about today. We'd be here forever. So I've only picked and chosen a few for you to look at. So what type of curses do we have then? Well, we have curses of black magic. We have voodoo doll curses, spooky. We also have, well, curses, they are magic spells. Now these are put on people with the intention of harming them. And this can be from pure annoyance to psychological things, to illness, suffering, even death. Curses are even associated with black magic and are not to be taken lightly, for sure. Now, there are various, as I said, there are various types of curses. There are what's called as jinx, hex, or the actual curse itself. And they're pretty much the same. They all do the kind of same thing. They cause harm and distress to people who it's put onto, for sure. They also have witchcraft curses as well. This microphone. So let's have a look at that. Is it just wishful thinking about these curses? Is it just wishful thinking on the part of the person doing the spell? Does the cursed person only feel ill when they know about the curse? What happens when they don't know? They'll get that? They still get these impressions? Who knows? And as you see from the slide here, there are various dolls. That's been through Victorian age, right through the centuries. You have people placing ill omens, sticking pins into the dolls, etc., and people allegedly suffering from this. Now, the following are just signs that people can use to dispel and get rid of these curses. Some of you may be aware of them. one needs to have these signs on their person at all times to affect the rebirth of these curses, which you'll see in a moment. So if you feel you've been hexed or there's a spell on you, you need this on you, these wee cards. This one here is a signal for reversing and redirecting curses. This one is to dispel and protect against all hexes and curses, so that's probably a better one. And this one is to reverse a curse and send it back to that person, who it maybe be your auntie or your uncle or something, who sent it to you, you know. Now, when we talk about curses, and there's so many, I think I may have showed this one before at a previous conference, the curse of James Dean's car. How many is aware of the curse on James Dean's car? Okay, not many of you. Okay, that's fine. Well, before we get into the actual curse, let's have a wee look at what's going on here. First and foremost, we all know this guy was an iconic star. He was a rising star in the movie world. His famous movies, Rebel Without a Cause, The East of Eden, Giant, fantastic movies. He was on the way up. He's making a great, good-looking guy. He was really, he was making a big name for himself. So prior to the crash and prior to the curse, Eartha Kitt and Dean's former girlfriend, Ursula Andress, said that they felt that the vehicle had some form of malevolent presence. And Eartha Kitt is reported to have said to Dean weeks before the crash, "James, I don't like this. I don't like this car. I think it's going to kill you." That's what she said. Now, around this time, Dean introduced himself to Alec Guinness, the famous British actor, and Guinness said that the car was sinister. And he said that if Dean got in it, he'd be dead within a week. Well, as we know. So, the story goes that James Dean was en route to an amateur road race in Salinas, and he was coming from Los Angeles. He was driving his brand new 1955 Porsche Spider car, which he had just purchased for the purpose of his amateur racing activities, because he loved the car, he loved racing, etc. He was accompanied this day by Rolf Wutterich, who was a German mechanic, and he was sent by Porsche to support the new American drivers, travelling on this new racing car. So they took a route that caused them to pass through Shalom in California on Highway 46. Shortly before the crash, Dean was pulled over by an officer and ticketed for speeding. Here's where the synchronicity comes in. If that officer hadn't and not had that crash, but he got stopped and he had this crash. So what I'm saying is your life preordained? Was it just an unfortunate accident? Anyway, let's go on. 5:45, Dean was westbound, passing through the Y intersection at Highway 41. He was 1 mile east of Shalom. And at that point, Donald Turnaside was driving a 1950 Ford Business Coupe. And he turned left in front of Dean and the collision occurred. Dean was killed immediately. Wutterich was ejected from the Porsche and found beside the driver's side of the car. Dean was found slumped against the passenger door, which sparked a long-standing controversy as to who was actually driving. So neither Dean nor Wutterich were wearing their seatbelt at the time of the accident. The mechanic was thrown from the automobile and suffered a broken jaw and leg. James Dean remained trapped in the vehicle, which was crushed like a piece of used tin foil. He was taken by ambulance to nearby Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital and pronounced dead at 5:59 p.m. The cause of death was a broken neck, multiple fractures of the upper and lower jaw, severe head trauma, and massive internal bleeding. Now, what happened next? Speculation that James Dean Carr was cursed, or at the very least caused a cursed afterlife. The following photographs you're about to see are just a few photographs of the day James Dean died. These are the very last photographs of James Dean alive. As you can see, there's a colour one. That's the car there. Very, very tidy racing car, that. So it's a 1955 Porsche Spider. Rolf Wutterich, passenger seat there. He came over from Porsche to ensure that the drivers of these cars know what they're doing, because it was a very, very fast car. Let us not forget, James Dean loved driving, he loved being in different races, etc. And this is about 2 hours before he passed away. And that's really just the road that he was taking. You've got Shalom there, and you've got the Paso Robas airport. So there were actually 6 vehicles. It was in this more or less convoy of cars on the road that day. This is it crashed into James Dean, Donald Turnerseed. He was passing all these cars here. James Dean's crossing there, and bang, that's where the accident happened, in that section there. Basically, he was turning in there, and James Dean, I don't know why he didn't see him, to be honest with you. This is the photograph of the area. The crash happened here, just in this Y intersection there. And as you see from the next slide, it's very little has changed. Well, we'll come to that in a moment. Look at the size of this car. This is the car that crashed into James Dean. And it's massive, it's strong, it's sturdy. The Americans sure know how to build cars. And this is a driver of the car that crashed into James Dean. That's the guy there, Donald Turnerseed. So, we're going to have a wee look at some of the images. And anybody put their hand up who has not seen images of James Dean's crashed car? Okay, that's nearly all the audience. Okay, if you're frightened of these type of things and you don't like scary stuff, or you don't like seeing crashed cars, look away. Okay, let's have a look at the crashed car. So you can see absolutely smashed to bits, crumpled like a tin foil. And if you look at this one here, I think we've got another one here. Just different versions, different angles from where the crash. Obviously, they're getting the stretcher out there too. Absolutely, nobody could really survive a crash like that, as you can see from there. Yes, other guy did die. Yeah. And this is it in one of the garages there, and yeah, the devastation is quite alarming, as you can see there. Just another one there. And that is Donald Turnerseed's car, the big car that crashed into him. It's also in the garage there. That's it there. So it took, even though it was a big, strong car, it took substantial damage as well. And this is it actually. These are all police officers' photographs. It's still lying there because it's a traffic crime. Well, not a crime scene, but it was an accident for sure, so it's still lying there at night. And I guess, sadly, you know who's been carted off in the stretcher there into the ambulance? James Dean himself, his life cut short. And to this day, there's still markers of respect at the scene of the crash, as you can see there. And this is 1955 opposed to 2005. You can see it's just, I mean, it's a desert, it's out in the desert. Nothing, very little has changed. It's still pretty much the same area, and it wouldn't change. So, what's all this curse about then? What are we talking about? We saw Dean's car in the crash. So let's have a look at it. May surprise you this. After the crash, the car was sold to a chap called Barris who planned to use it for spares. But upon the car's arrival at the garage, it fell off, unloading onto a mechanic, breaking one of his legs. The two physicians bought the car and drivetrain to place in their own race cars. On October 2nd, 1956, they raced the cars using the parts for the first time. One was killed in an accident, the other seriously injured in another accident. 2 of the tyres were taken off Dean's car and sold to a young man who later reported that both tyres had blown at the same time, very nearly causing a serious accident. And souvenir-seeking fans tried to steal parts of Dean's car only to suffer severe injuries. The California Highway Patrol decided to use Dean's vehicle as part of a safety exhibit. And during one of these exhibits, the garage used to house Dean's car went up in flames. Strange, as all the vehicles inside were destroyed, but James Dean's car. Later, when on display at a Sacramento high school, the car fell off its pedestal, breaking a student's hip. Then after that, the car was sent to Salinas, but on the way, the car fell off the flatbed truck, killing the driver. Oh dear, stuff. 2 years later, the car fell off another truck, causing an accident. Then in 1958, it caused another accident. And in 1959, the car was on display for no reason whatsoever. It suddenly collapsed into 11 pieces. In 1960, the car was crated and sent to Los Angeles, but it never arrived. It never arrived. Somewhere on the way, it just disappeared. Now, obviously, they must have found it because the on display here at one of the, I'm not sure exactly where this is, but it's got, and they must have panelled it out because it's not as crashed, it's not as crumpled as you saw a moment or two ago. And at that junction, they now call it the James Dean Memorial Junction. It's very, very sad that we lost this iconic actor, and he was on the pinnacle of success, and very, very great loss. Now we can say to ourselves, was that just pure coincidence? Was that coincidence, all these things falling off the trucks and all that? Or was it a curse? A curse? Why would it be a curse? I wish I had more time to go through into it. Like I say, like an audio book, and so I'm going to continue with reading off some of these slides, which I don't like doing. Anyway, we're talking now about the King Tut's Tutankhamun. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it. Howard Carter, as you know, he entered the burial chamber on the 17th of February 1923. And on the 6th of March, Lord Carnarvon, his financial backer, was bitten by a mosquito. The bite became infected and he died on the 5th of April, and rumours began to spread that the curse of Tutankhamun's tomb had claimed its first victim. When Carnarvon died, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, God bless you, son, announced that he was convinced that Carnarvon had been killed by the Pharaoh's curse. And the press began to publish wild speculation as fact. One newspaper even printed the following curse, allegedly written in hieroglyphics by the entrance to the tomb, which allegedly said, "They who enter the sacred tomb shall swift be visited by wings of death." There is no record of this phrase anywhere in the report of the tomb of Tutankhamun, and the inscription itself has since mysteriously vanished. So, Howard Carter's pet canary was eaten by a cobra on the day the tomb was opened. The cobra was associated with the goddess Wadjet, who was the Eye of Ra. Carter did have a pet canary, but he apparently gave it to his friend Minnie Burton to look after while he was working. And so that fateful meeting with the cobra never took place. Again, it's journalistic speed. Having worked with the media all my life, I know what it's like. It's terrible. So they're putting a spin on this curse. At the time of Carnarvon's death, there were a widespread blackout in Cairo. Now, this is apparently true, and would be impressive if it was not for the fact blackouts are quite common in Cairo. So maybe nothing to do with the curse. Carnarvon's dog Susie, who remained in his estate in England, allegedly let out a mournful howl at the moment of death and promptly died. The whole story of the dog is rather suspect. The dog allegedly died at exactly 4 o'clock in the morning and was apparently witnessed by Carnarvon's son. However, Lord Carnarvon died at 1:55 a.m, which would have been midnight, not 4 a.m. in England. So you've probably seen this in books and magazines. Oh, look at that, but look at that, the dog died at the same time. It didn't. Egyptians didn't write curses in their tombs. There were numerous spells, but they were intended to help the deceased pass to the underworld, or to ensure that the deceased received food and other offerings in the world that they needed in the afterlife. So technically there's no reason, no evidence that a curse was ever found anywhere in Tutankhamun's tomb. Even though the contents were fully recorded, none of the 10 people present when the mummy was unwrapped had died. But was the curse real? I'm saying, is this curse of Tutankhamun real? Well, August 29th, 1980, Richard Adamson, a military policeman who spent 7 years actually sleeping in the tomb to guard it, allegedly told the Daily Mail that the curse had been proposed by a journalist at the time, and the archaeologists even had not done anything to prevent the story being publicised, as it meant it would be fewer disturbances. Oh, let's make a curse, and nobody will bother about us. We now look at the Hope Diamond curse. One of the most spectacular gems in the world is a Hope Diamond. It's a beautiful blue diamond weighing over 45 carats, about the size of a walnut. And it's estimated to be worth about $250 million. However, there are many people who would like to buy it, would think twice about buying it because, allegedly, it's got a curse associated with it. The diamond remained with the French royal family until it was stolen in 1792 during the French Revolution. And Marie Antoinette, who was beheaded, are often cited as the victims of the curse. And the Hope Diamond is the most famous cursed diamond in the world, but it's only one of many. It's one of many cursed diamonds. French monarchs, an heiress, and at least one unlucky postman, what's he got to do with it, had met misfortune after possessing it, and its current home is in the National Museum of Natural History. Has anybody seen that diamond, by the way? Put your hands up. No? I've got one in my pocket. No. So, the Gillette curse. Gillette? What's Malcolm talking here? The Gillette curse? What's that all about? Okay, let's have a wee look. As I say, I'm just giving you a smattering of some of the alleged curses. So, marketing experts are beginning to wonder if there is a curse when sporting stars have been sponsored by Gillette. It would appear that there have been many mishaps that occur to sports stars associated with the brand of Gillette. Some of the stars that have allegedly fell down to the curse have been ex-Arsenal star Thierry Henry, golfer Tiger Woods, and tennis player Roger Federer. Tiger Woods, the golden boy of golf and all-round sporting god, made headline news after crashing his car following an argument with his wife. Oh, well done that. We don't always crash our car, do we? Now, not only that, but Woods' crash was quickly followed by a shock defeat for Federer, the world's best tennis player, who was knocked out of the ATP World Tour semi-final by six-seeded Russian Nikolai Davdenko. On the scale of sporting defeats, it's hardly Armageddon, but any Federer defeat is noteworthy. Again, we could think about it's just pure coincidence, but allegedly it's a curse. The Crucible, the home of snooker. Lovely place. I've been there myself. Stephen Henry was playing one of the English. I'll tell you this very quickly. And me and my friend had a man on me. Security guy came up. You can't put that flag there. That's promotional stuff. And so we had to get rid of it, which is a great shame. And Stephen Henry got beat as well, by the way. So, no first-time winner of the World Snooker Championship had successfully defended his title since the event was first held at the Crucible in Sheffield in 1977. This has been widely attributed to a Crucible curse. The curse of Superman. Did anybody know that there's a curse of Superman? Put your hands up. Shake it all about. Nobody? Okay, well, you're about to be informed, aren't you? Okay, so the Superman curse refers to a supposedly related misfortunes that has plagued creative people involved in the adaptations of the DC comic character Superman in various media, particularly actors who have played the role of Superman on film and television. Let's have a look at some of these. The curse is often evoked whether misfortune is experienced by actors or other personnel who work on Superman adaptations, so much so that some talent agents cite the curse as the reason for the difficulty in casting actors in the role of live-action films. Here's one of the first guys associated with the curse of Superman, an actor called Kirk Allen. He played Superman in two low-budget 1940s serials, but failed to find work afterwards because he was too closely identified with the role. And as a result, he was relegated to voiceovers, commercials, and uncredited screen roles. He would later appear as Lois Lane's father in the 1978 Superman film, and he also had Alzheimer's disease later in his life. He died in 1999. at the age of 88. So what we're saying here is after his role in Superman, nobody wanted to know. And it happened to quite a lot. Lee Quigley played Superman as a baby in the 1978 film, and he died in 1991 at the age of 14 of solvent abuse. Curse or coincidence? We're going to talk about that later as we go through. George Reeves played Superman in a 1951 film and ensuing television series, The Adventures of Superman. Like Alwyn and Reeve, he was too closely associated with the role to find further work. And in June 1959, days before he was to be married, he was found dead of a gunshot wound at his home with a Luger near him. The death was ruled as suicide, but controversy surrounds the death as Reeve's fingerprints were never found on the gun. And he had been having an affair with the ex-wife of MGM exec Eddie Mannix. And it was Reeve's death that inspired the conspiracy theories and this urban legend associated with the Superman curse. Christopher Reeve, he played Superman. I won't read them all there, but as you've seen him many, many times. But like Reeve, he was so closely identified with the character that it was difficult for him to acquire lead parts in other films. He was too closely recognised. And as we know, Reeves was paralysed from the neck down after being thrown from his horse in a cross-country equestrian riding event on May 27, 1995. And he died on October 10th, aged 52. Bless him. Dana Reeve. Still lots more to do with this curse. It's also been associated with this actress, Dana Reeve, who, despite being a non-smoker, died of lung cancer in 2006 at the age of 44. Margaret Kidder. She played Superman's love interest, Lois Lane, opposite Christopher Reeve. You may have seen this one. She had bipolar disorder, and in April 1996, she went missing for several days and was found by the police in a paranoid, delusional state. She died on May 13th, 2018 in Livingston, Montana after a drug and alcohol overdose. Her death was ruled as suicide. Richard Pryor. He starred as the villain Gus Gorman in 1993. And 3 years later, it was announced that he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. He died of a heart attack on December 10th, 2005, at the age of 65. Is it a curse, or is it just coincidence? I'm sure you've got your own minds. These guys here, brothers Mark Fleischer, Dave Fleischer of the studios, they produced Paramount Superman cartoons. They began to quarrel with each other. And the studio suffered financial disaster. And after selling to Paramount Studios, the new owner fired the two brothers. Max died in poverty in a film industry charity hospital. Again, two guys associated with the Superman franchise. Now, a DVD, the curse was invoked when three people involved in the Creation Man, the Superman Returns DVD, were injured. One of them fell down a flight of stairs, another was mugged, another was physically assaulted, and a third smashed into a glass window. The director of the DVD said, "My DVD crew absorbed the curse for us." Yeah, as you would. Alison Mack, she played Chloe Sullivan on the TV series Smallville. She was accused of sex trafficking and forced human labour and was arrested in April 2018 on those charges. And an article in Fox News speculated whether this might be related to the curse. Rudolph Valentino. We're going through all these curses now. We're still to come to the haunted objects. If you get holy, what time for it? So Valentino's curse ring, it comes from a series of misfortunes. 1920 movie star before my time, Rudolph Valentino bought a plain silver ring embedded with a semi-precious stone from a jewellery store in San Francisco. He immediately fell in love with the ring and ignored the store's owner's warnings that he believed it was haunted. And while he wore the ring during filming a movie, which was a complete failure, after putting away the ring for many years, Valentino took it out for what would be his final movie. He died shortly after, still wearing the ring. It was then passed along to Paula Negri, one of the Valentino's former lovers, who suffered a severe illness but recovered. However, her career was, after this illness was over, she passed this ring on to a young singer, Ross Colombo, who died in a shooting accident. Oh dear. A lot of misfortune going on here. Joe Casino wore the ring. He died in a car accident. 1 week later, James Willis attempted to steal the ring, but was caught by police and shot. The list goes on. At least 3 more people who owned the ring died while it was in their possession. So clearly this is one piece of property you guys don't want to get involved with, for sure. Would you buy it if I had it today? Anybody would buy it? I would. Well, anyway, so the cursed mirror of Myrtle's plantation. So we're doing kind of curses and haunted shortly as well. So there's a cursed mirror. A cursed mirror? Yes, indeed. Inside the Myrtle's plantation in Louisiana, and it's been deemed one of the most haunted homes in the United States. But every TV program tell you that. They say, oh, this is the most haunted home. No, it's this one. Anyway, the plantation itself dates back to 1796. It was built on a Native American burial ground. Oh dear. One of the worst places to build a home, I guess. It's rumoured that 10 murders have occurred at the plantation, and paranormal activity occurs daily for the guests residing in this lovely bed and breakfast. Now, added to this haunted home in 1980 was a mirror that was placed in one of the main hallways that guests walk by every single day. And as the guests walk by this mirror, they have reported seeing figures, shadowy figures lurking around or near, and you can see them in the reflection. And it's exclaimed that even child handprints are impregnated onto the mirror as well. It says that the legend goes that Sarah Woodruff and her children owned this mirror even. And Sarah and her children were sadly poisoned to death in their home, making understand why there's sometimes children's handprints on the mirror. Was that these poor little children who had died on it? Custom dictates that mirrors should be covered after a person dies near it, so that way the spirit or spirits do not become in the mirror. However, this is not the case in the Myrtle's plantation. The haunted mirror was not covered, and after the death of Sarah and her children, indicated that Sarah's spirit is still alive and well within the mirror, as well as her children's spirits. And this is an alleged photograph of, I'm not saying it's one of the children, but again it could be simulacra. Anybody that knows me knows full well that whilst I'm a spiritualist and I firmly believe in life after death, because the evidence is so overwhelming, I'm still sceptical. Pareidolia, simulacrum, you look into the clouds, you see a shape, well that looks like a duck or it looks like a bird. Yeah, and so you've got to think that a lot of the photographs submitted to our society turn out to be nothing more than just dark and shade and nothing else. Is this a ghost? Or one of the lectures, look at this, we'll show you it now a bit better. One of the lectures I love giving is the Ghostly Photographs lecture, where I have lots of photographs to show you. So here we have, and we're living in today's technology. Is it just this done on computer? You can see the child's face, the eyes, the nose, the hair. You've got a waistband, you've got a dress here. Is this the real deal? Or is it just manufactured on computer? So let's have a look at haunted objects, and there's so many. We use lovely guys and gals today, but obviously we've got to watch your time. Abraham Lincoln's haunted train. How many people know about this? Put your hands up, shake them about. Okay. Well, as you know, Abraham Lincoln served in the United States from March 1861 until his assassination in April 1865. He successfully led the United States through the greatest internal crisis, the American Civil War, preserving the Union and ending slavery. Well done, son. President Lincoln in life was very interested in spiritualism. Some of you know that. He attended seances in the White House, and he had premonitions. He had premonitions of his own death. Now, soon after the assassination, the body of President Abraham Lincoln, together with the exhumed remains of his son Willie, were transported by railroad from Washington to Illinois for burial. While descriptions vary, they are striking similarities to the story told. The train is easily identified by a bluish light. It seems to emanate. Those waiting by the tracks report that the train makes no noise at all, although some witnesses have reported hearing an old-fashioned train whistle. This is the actual train itself. You've probably seen them in a lot of these Western movies. Oh, I do love a good Western. That's beside the point. So anyway, what about this? So witnesses described the train as containing a skeleton band, all in the blue of the Union uniforms, who are playing music that no one can hear. On the second car of the train is the president's coffin. It's draped in a flag surrounded by black crepe. A skeleton honor guard dressed in both Union and Confederate uniforms stand at attention around the coffin. And as the train air beside the tracks becomes still and warm, no matter how cool it might have been before. Clocks allegedly stop for 6 minutes as the train, and all other trains run 6 minutes slow for the rest of the night. Crossing gates are reported, it's like today, isn't it? Are reported to malfunction, going up and down of their own accord as if an invisible there. So, Lincoln's ghost. It's been seen in the White House. Grace Coolidge, the wife of President Calvin, was the first to see his ghost. It was also in the Oval Office, and he was looking out of a window beyond the Potomac River. Eleanor Roosevelt, Onassis, have also felt his presence in the White House as well. Roosevelt's dog Fala sensed something and would bark with excitement for no reason. It was believed, obviously, that he had seen the ghost of Lincoln. And as we know, as spiritualists, the animal kingdom, they are so in tune with the spirit world. We know that. They see it well before us, or hear things well before us. Ray Truman heard Lincoln's footsteps one night. He also heard rappings at his door, but no one was there when he opened it. And he noted that the servants swore that they saw Abraham. The Reverend Norman Vincent Peale said an actor heard Lincoln's pleas for help and saw Lincoln on the floor as if in prayer, but he refused to name the actor that he spoke to at that time. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands saw Lincoln's ghost when she was in the room one night. She heard someone walking in the hall, then a rap on the door, and when she opened the door, she saw Lincoln. She actually saw Lincoln standing there wearing a top hat. At least one person witnessed Lincoln sitting on the bed donning his boots. And people have reported hearing and seeing Lincoln pacing about near his Springfield, Illinois grave. To a haunted chair, aware of the Busby stoop. Busby stoop. Put your hands up if you're aware. Haunted. I'd love to sit in this chair, but wait till you hear the story first. So it's the story of Busby stoop chair, and this is in Thrisk, North Yorkshire. So the story goes, here we go. Thomas Busby, he was a man who enjoyed the odd drink or five, something like myself. He was regularly seen at his favourite pub, sitting in his favourite chair. And Busby was not a man to be trifled with. He was a petty thief. He had a quick temper, and he seldom did he resist the temptation to enter into a confrontation with somebody. So he was a right vicious, evil guy, and he had his favourite chair in this pub. He loved it. So it was this bravado that cost him dearly. In the summer of 1702, Daniel Uti, Busby's father-in-law, riled Busby by using the chair without his permission or acknowledgement. So he took his chair. When Busby found Uti sitting where he wasn't supposed to, a blazing row broke out. And sometime later that same night, Tom Busby ended the life of his father-in-law. This happened here. It's the Busby Stoop Inn in Thrisk in North Yorkshire. So don't sit in Busby's chair. Don't sit in it. Why? Well, anyway, a quick trial found Tom Busby guilty as charged, and the sentence was death by hanging. But as a show of leniency, they granted him a final request, and Busby decided to have a final drink. Naturally enough, Thomas Busby selected his renowned chair to have that final drink. Minutes before, they led him off to execution, and he stated, "Death shall come swiftly to anyone that dares to sit in my chair." So, what happened? Well, the first recorded victim of this apparent curse, back to curses, is an unnamed chimney sweep who had no other option but to use Busby's chair. first time in some decades it had been used, so perhaps no parlance was given to this ominous warning uttered by its former owner. Several minutes after finishing his break and returning to work, the unfortunate man fell off the roof to his death. Busby Stoop had claimed its first of many victims. Over the course of the next couple of centuries, people dared each other to sit in the chair. Not surprisingly, many refused. However, during World War II, numerous Air Force officers bravely accepted the challenge when put to them. Few failed to notice that all who did never returned home from the conflict. Sometime in 1967, a pair of RAF pilots took on the chair and lost when their car they were travelling in later hit a tree. So all these deaths were happening, and the landlord decided that enough was enough and had the chair removed from public display, as the chair had been good for business, bringing in curious and daredevils from miles around. It was only prudent that no other lives should be put at risk, quite right too. They placed the chair down in the basement, where it remained for several years. Even this was not good enough. A bricklayer contracted to work on the pub one year noticed the chair tucked away in one of the basement, and he decided to rest in it. He was knackered. He decided to rest in it. And that very afternoon, you've guessed it, he fell to his death. It would appear that nobody could use this chair and survive. Other deaths and misfortunes were the roofer who was working when the roof collapsed beneath him, the whole roof collapsed. The cleaning woman who stumbled onto the chair and later suffered an aneurysm. The delivery driver who crashed his delivery van between deliveries within an hour of this encounter. So they decided to obviously raise the chair into the corner so nobody could sit on this chair. I'd love to sit in the chair. I know that sounds daft, but that's just me. I'm just one of these guys that love testing things. Come on then. So overall, anyone who sat in the chair, and it was about 63 in total, have died under mysterious circumstances. Again, it could be coincidence, but what if it's a curse? What if it's not? What if it's a curse? The final straw, they contacted the Thrisk Museum and asked if they would take the chair off their hands. The museum staff agreed. Arrangements were made to transport the chair under tight security, and it's still on public display in the museum, but it's now hanging 6 feet off the ground. So staff and members of the public can't get in there. So the Anguished Man looks a bit like me Saturday night after a few beers. So this is the name given to a scary painting that is owned by Sean Robinson. The painting in his grandmother's basement when he was a kid, and he became obsessed with it, watching it for hours. He just stare and watch at this painting. And when his grandmother died, she left it to him and he brought it to his home, and then that's when the spooky stuff started to happen. Suddenly he and his wife started hearing weird noises. Doors would shut on their own accord. Paranormal events took place. It got so bad that he recorded a time-lapse video to catch the painting in the act, and he wasn't disappointed. Now, when he researched the painting, he found that the painting was an artist hours before he committed suicide. The artist even supposedly mixed his own blood into the painting before he took his own life. The Crying Boy paintings, I'm sure that a lot of you in the room today are aware of this. So how did it start? How did the Crying Boy, who is aware of this Crying Boy paintings? Put your hands up. So a few of you know about it, that's good. It actually started to gain widespread publicity and popularity. They received in the British newspaper, The Sun. It's not just one painting of a crying boy. There are about 65 different paintings, and you'll see in a minute, of tearful boys. That's all this artist painted, tearful boys, by the Italian painter Giovanni Braglin. No one knows why he just loved painting crying boys. In the 1980s, there was a report in the paper that there had been several house fires that had claimed the lives, and while the entire structure burnt down, only the picture of the crying boy remained unscathed. Now, whether again this is a coincidence, pictures are haunted, we'll never know. I'd be inclined to avoid putting this thing in my house, probably. I'm sure you would as well. So this is just one of the, it may have well been from the Sun, blazing curse of the crying boy. And that's true, it didn't just happen in the one house, it happened to many houses. The house was burnt to the ground, but in the corner would be this painting of this crying child. I mentioned this guy here, the Italian painter here. He 65 paintings he did of this crying boy. As you can see, some of them there. Robert the doll. Haunted doll. Do-do-do. Okay. 1890, family in Florida. Robert, who was turning 4. One of the servants got him a gift. It was a large doll in a sailor suit. Robert named his doll Robert as well, and no one thought anything about it until weird stuff started to happen. People reported seeing Robert talking to the doll in dark rooms, giggling hysterically, and often be accompanied by a deep baritone voice. Anytime anything went missing, eventually, Robert the doll was placed in the attic where it was seen moving from window to window in the attic. When a new family bought the house in 1976, the first person to find the doll ended up fainting with fright, saying that the doll spoke to her and told her it was going to kill her. Oh dear. It was then donated to a Florida museum. That before photographing, one should ask Robert for permission. There are also letters attached to the glass from people who didn't ask and are now requesting. So they've taken photographs without seeking permission, and they're putting that. The screen. We've all seen the documentaries. Another cursed doll, and there are many. A lot of the cursed doll you see for sale on eBay and all that, a lot of rubbish. People will just sell any doll just to get it. It's a haunted doll. I want £200 for it. Away. Don't spend your money on that. Do the research. Anyway, thanks to the movie The Conjuring, the doll is pretty popular. Annabelle was a gift to a daughter going to a college in 1970. Both the girl Donna and her roommate reported finding the doll in different positions in the rooms in the house. They even with childish writing on it. A psychic stated that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a girl named Annabelle who had died in a fire. A friend called Lou had never been fond of the doll and warned Donna, "You've got to get rid of this doll, I don't like it." And one night the warnings came true. Waking from a deep sleep, Lou found to his horror that he was completely paralysed. He was looking down at his feet and he saw, that sounds crazy, he saw the doll Annabelle at his feet, and it began to slowly glide up his neck, moving over his chest, and then stopped. In seconds the doll was strangling him. Wow. And he was gasping for breath at the point of asphyxiation. He blacked out. He awoke the next morning. He was certain that it wasn't a dream. That sounds real bizarre to me. To Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were normal investigators. I'm sure a lot of us know about them. And they discovered that the doll was a conduit. It was a conduit. That's a nice word, isn't it? Conduit. I'm going to say that for you. For demons. Exorcisms didn't work. The doll was placed in the warrens of glass that warned people not to open it. Again, it's like Busby Stoop chair. I'd love to see this doll. Terrible. I'm going to tell the truth. And that's just me. I test, psychic. I test. The Dubik box. We look at that. What this is, it's a popular object in the Jewish tradition. It's meant to contain an evil spirit. This particular one started its life as a wine cabinet, then took on a sinister role. It was bought at an auction in Portland and supposedly belonged to a 100-year-old Jewish woman who survived the Holocaust. But somehow, evil spirit trapped in a box. Spirit trapped in a box. The man who bought it initially gave it to his mother, who died shortly after. This words being hate gift. Having dreams about an old hag. He tried giving it away. Nobody would take it, unsurprisingly. I then put it on eBay, where Jason Haxton bought of osteopathic medicine, and he not only had nightmares, but began coughing up blood, and he developed a skin disease. Contacted some woman from Lem statue. According to the legend, this statue was discovered in 1878. To have been carved in 3,000, 5,000 BC. You know, no one knows what the statue is supposed to be. Assume a female of some sort, by a lord who perished with 6 family members under mysterious circumstances. The last remaining family member sold it. It was a man named Ivor Machuni, and within 4 years, family died under mysterious circumstances. Cursed objects. A total of 2 more owners and their families lost their lives to the statue until it was donated to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. The man who handled the statue put it in a glass case, then promptly died. And he touches it. I would. I'm silly. I'm daft. Anna Barker's wedding dress. Here's another one. She was the daughter of a rich iron magnate, Ellis Barker. Now, Anna had the misfortune of falling in love with an iron worker, nothing the matter with that, at her dad's factory, and even went out and had a wedding dress commissioned. When her father found out, he wasn't happy. He had the worker run out of town and forbid Anna to marry someone of a lower class. She spent the rest of her life in the room heartbroken and alone. She died in 1914, and when the Baker Museum was turned into the Baker Museum in the 1970s, Anna's dress was put on display. Since then, since it's been on display, strange things have started happening, strange voices. And the most crazy one that happens is that the dress allegedly dances, moves about in its case, dances. So is this the ghost, the spirit of this lady who died before she managed to marry this iron worker? Who knows? The chained oak. So you maybe can't see it so well at the back here. You've got chains, big heavy, see it there, dangling. So this oak tree near the village of Alton in Staffordshire is undoubtedly one of the scariest looking trees that you'll ever look at, and it's covered in huge rusted chains. This is a story. Legend has it that the Earl of Shrewsbury, who lived at the grand estate of Alton Towers, was travelling back home one evening when his carriage was stopped by a lone beggar woman. The grubby old lady for a penny, and rudely dismissed her. She cursed the Earl, stating that for every branch that fell from the old oak tree, there's a song in there, a member of his family would perish. Well, that night, a great storm ripped one of the limbs from the tree, and by the morning, one of the Earl's family members had passed away horribly. The frightened nobleman then ordered that the tree be bound in chains, that no more branches can fall. Our second curse oak is to the wizard Merlin from the old Arthurian legend. The town of Carmarthen is said to be the oldest, so old in fact that its very origins have been linked to the Mirrodin or Merlin, giving rise to the town's name, Carvedin. That was good, that was no bad try, wasn't it? Which is the fort of Merlin. Now, a large oak once stood in the town believed to have been planted by the wandering. So what about the curse then? A prophecy accompanied the ancient tree stating, when Merlin's oak comes tumbling down, then shall fall Carmarthen town. When the tree did finally get removed after the very next year, recorded, a branch taken from the tree is fiery apocalypse. Again, we ask the question, is it a curse or is it just haunted ledger? After the demolition of Shoreland's Fuchs jeweller in the city of Brighton, builder Tony Bevowitz removed an old shop ledger book that he had found hidden behind a brick wall. He took an interesting example of retail memorabilia back to his home in Maidstone, and soon enough his family were plagued. As soon as he brought this book back, his family were plagued by a manner of otherworldly, strange voices, ghostly apparitions, strange images of people appearing in the family's rug. Yeah. One particular spirit informed Mr. Bennett's daughter, Josephine, that the book needed to be returned to its by the century of the first entry within its crumbling pages. Not wanting to anger the spirit, they donated the book to Preston Manor's, reputedly Brighton's most haunted house, which is where it now resides. Another doll. It's a porcelain doll. It was manufactured in 1910, and a woman bought the doll which had a crack running down the side of its face. After buying the doll, she would wake up in the middle of the night because she thought she heard a baby crying in the basement. Walking down the steps, there were nobody to be seen at all, except that the basement window was open. She shut it in bed. When the same event happened multiple times, she started to believe that Mandy was haunted, so she gave it away to the Queensland Museum in British Columbia in Canada. After that, she could finally get some sleep. However, Mandy the doll wasn't done. Employees from the museum began to notice that lunches would go missing from the fridge, only to show up in random places. As we know, the paranormal works that way. The same thing happened to pens, papers, scissors, other objects. Is somebody playing a prank here in the museum? Or is this playful ghost doing this, messing with their heads? Belcourt Castle, Newport, Rhode Island. It's one of the most oldest towns in the United States. It was settled in 1690. By the early 20th century, the seaport town had become a hot summer destination for some of America's wealthiest families. The mansions of Newport are legendary, as are the many ghost stories. Belcourt Castle was founded by Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont, a wealthy American socialite and politician, in 1894. There are many different documented hauntings within this lavish home, but perhaps the most famous haunted objects in the castle are two chairs. Two chairs that reportedly have spirits attached to them. And I do believe that. You know, it's like psychometry. If you hold a ring or that, you got the person's emanation. So why not somebody's old chair? Oh, they loved that chair. Of course it's going to be haunted. Visitors chairs say that they immediately feel cold and queasy and uncomfortable. Their hands feel like they're pricked by static electricity when held near the chairs. They feel a static electricity emanating from that. And they claim that they felt like sitting on someone. So like if they're sitting in the chair, it's like somebody's sitting on top of them as soon as they sit down. The Haunted Dr. Zeus book, I'm saying that, pronouncing that properly. This is obviously quite a famous children's book. I don't know if some of your kids have got it in the house. One of the strangest is this book here. It's in the collection of West Virginia's National Museum of the Paranormal. It's also, this museum has a number of paranormal haunted dolls, but now it's got this haunted book. And so how can you have a haunted book? Well, why not? The book apparently was owned by a family that claimed every time their daughter read it, they could hear children's voices. Every time her child read the book, she could hear whispering in children's voices, whispering in the dark, as if they were being watched. A paranormal investigator checked out the history of the book. It was found to have come from a house where there had been a quadruple homicide, and a red stain on the cover of the book was blood. Needless to say, no one has been reading it. It now, just like Annabelle the doll and other haunted dolls, it resides in a glass case of harm's reach. Sano Vase. Just watch my time here. So this is a silver vase made in the 15th century. It was given to the bride, right? The bride, on the event of her wedding, didn't make it to the altar. because she was murdered that night, and the vase in her hand. She was killed with this vase in her hand. That vase was passed down through the family members, these people, and anybody who took possession of this vase soon after. After the family boxed the vase, resurfaced in 1988 a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death." Since it wasn't included at the auction, the man who bought it for 4 million lira died within 3 months after getting hold of it. 3 more deaths on new owners followed until the curse went dormant after the warehouse agents arrived to take it away. The next owner similarly passed away, this time after 2 months after gaining possession of this vase. He died as well. The pattern continued, owner to owner to owner, until eventually the police decided enough was enough, and they buried it somewhere. They won't tell anybody where, but I think that's quite a good thing to do, actually. Yes, the Ouija boards, we've all done that. So, ladies and gentlemen, are curses real? Are haunted objects real? Is it the desire to believe in curses that some people think, oh, somebody's just cursed me, and it's like a placebo effect. Their own body shakes and goes down because, oh, I've been cursed and I don't feel well. Or again, is it just by pure thought alone? It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. And these are just a few examples I've showed you today of curses and haunted objects. There's a lot of coincidences with them, I think. But could it be a curse? It would seem impossible. It would seem impossible for someone to stick pins in a doll and for that person to suddenly take on a painful condition. I'd like to try that. It's just me, I'm terrible. I'd like to make a wee doll with somebody's face that I know, and don't tell them I've done this, and start sticking pins in it and see if what's the matter with you? I'd like to try that. So, it's like I said a moment ago, it's like when somebody knows they're getting pins stuck in them, they're like that. A lot of these curses you've heard may, as I said, have natural explanations, coincidences. But then we could argue, what is a coincidence? Like predestiny, pre-awareness. Was it something in life to be? Well, we're debating that, you know. Can objects really, I mentioned about the chair and that, and again with psychometry, I do believe haunted, I mean, it's not on the top, but I'll give you a quick one. One of my dear friends who passed many years ago told me a true story. He says, there's a guy who lived in Stirling in central Scotland, near where I live now. He said when he was a boy, his mum had bought this beautiful ornate mirror round the corners. And he looked at it, and he could see a rabbit, a wee blue rabbit in the corner. As he got close to it, he could see it, but when he moved back, it disappeared. And his mum could see it as well. And his mum told him, do you know where that mirror came from? Where? A toy shop. It was in the attic of a toy shop, next facing a lot, of which one was a toy blue rabbit. So you ask yourself the question, how is that possible for something like that to be impregnated into the very fabric of a mirror? We spoke about people's presence, spirit presence, being impregnated into the fabric of a chair. Absolutely true. So for me, I would lean towards curses. A lot of them can be true. It was maybe 50-50. Haunted objects, I definitely believe in that wholeheartedly, 100%. I certainly do believe in that, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, it's for sure. So coming up tomorrow, I've got 2 talks. I won't be reading them tomorrow, thank God. That was the first time I've given this presentation. Because it's a new one, I had to read off slides. It's like an audio book. So just think you're listening to an audio book. Coming up tomorrow, I'm speaking about 2 of Great Britain's UFO hotspots. We have Bonnybridge in Scotland in Stirlingshire, Minster in Wiltshire, a scene of mega UFO sightings, experiences, etc. That's here at 9:30, I believe. And also I'm speaking about the Cottingley Ferries tomorrow at around about 2:30. That may be wrong because I think I've got the times wrong. no matter. So that's the 2 talks I'm giving tomorrow. You've been a lovely audience. I think we've got about 10 minutes or so. Make questions, because I don't like hard ones. Thank you very much. Yes. No, I mean, he's asking an image of the Ouija board. Do you think I'm off the head? Do you deal with Ouija boards and all that? I says, well, you shake your head. It's another tool. It's another instrument to contact spirit. Just like we did table tilting this morning. A lot of you were there, flabbergasted. Well, I see these tables are moving about everywhere. So the Ouija board is dangerous. Of course it's dangerous. And if not used in the correct hands. We all know about, people, the glasses smashing off, the planchette will move off. So some of the people going through the Ouija board are earthquakes who can't believe it way, intend to cause mischief, masquerading as your Auntie Agnes or your Uncle Harry and that. So they are nasty spirits. That's why it gets that reputation. But for me, it's still a tool. We'll use it on investigation. But everybody's got their thoughts. Anybody else? Yes. Yes. I remember that. I could have put that in the top. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, good. Okay. You want to use this mic? Here down the front, she says she can answer some of the curses. Oh yes, you can. Don't be shy.
So, in Africa, voodoo magic isn't just dolls. It's actually blood magic. So it's like chicken blood, feathers, and what you do is you find the essence of the person, and it doesn't actually be your hair follicles or anything like that. They just have to take an essence of you, and it is real. Really strong stories about how people have been cursed many miles away. That's how they find people, and that's how they killed a lot of people that are gay. Especially, it's used as a way of killing people that are gay. There was a famous one, I can't remember the name. I've forgotten the name, I'm sorry. And then blood curses are made, there are several blood curses. America, where they take a bit of your blood and they mix it, and it curses your entire bloodline. For anyone with your DNA connection will be cursed.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Anybody here that believes have been cursed? Anybody here that's could say, you know what? I think I've been cursed. If not, it doesn't matter. Anybody know? Okay, yourself, yeah. And what about haunted objects? Has anybody maybe went to an old shop or an old curio shop and you brought back, I mentioned about the mirror, and they brought back something and they went, oh Christ almighty, I can see an old man sitting in there. Anybody with a story like that? Don't be shy. No? Well, I would say yes. Make it a good one, because I'm a bit finishing now.
One of my, her sister's into, she doesn't look it up, one of them, and she gave her sister a stone, and it was a rock stone, and she said, my friend said she handled it, she said it was, made her feel sick to the pit of her stomach. Anyway, she kept the stone stupidly. I said to her, get rid of it, I didn't like the sound of it. The next minute, there's phenomenon hanging about the flat, like doors flying over, crockery going flying out the bed, doors slammed on her fingers. She was in a terrible state, and I said, get rid of it. And we managed to bury it. The phenomenon stopped. I nearly had to call on Jackie because I wasn't quite too sure how far this thing was going to go. But it did stop on its own. But my God, it was a real frightener.
Yeah, that's it. They've got their own experiences of the paranormal. And everybody knows me, it's been 10 years more than I can talk forever, because I just love talking about this subject. I've got so much to share with you, lovely people. But this is where I do the obligatory plug again. I missed it earlier. The Socky poltergeist, about Scotland's best poltergeist case. And also, please leave us alone. This is a true story. A family from Ireland plagued by poltergeist, hat man, shadow people, strange beings in their home, us family, UFOs as well, would you believe? And they're absolutely, they had to flee the house. It was unbelievable. These are here, anybody wants that. Thank each and every one of you for your patience and listening to me reading off these slides. It's not, but talk to me later this weekend. I'm here all weekend. Anybody wants to drop a £20 note in the back pocket, free to do that. Love you all. I just love speaking about this subject. Thank you. Thank you.